leaning into it, you should join the AXIT movement because Asian values in its root are conservative values. And is there a discussion about liberal values that is actually positive? Sure. But when we talk about our roots, when we talk about what makes Asian Americans and our values, it does lean conservative. This is why the Asian exit movement is important, exiting from the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party wants you to depend on the government. They are obsessed with racism. They are obsessed with victimhood. They are obsessed with the government owing you something. Hey, what's up you guys? My name is MITCH LOZADA and this is my official AXIT testimonial. A long time coming, I postponed a lot, and you know what? It's May, it's Asia Pacific Islander Heritage Month, so what not better opportunity to talk about the Asian exit movement than this video, and we'll just go straight into it. I'll talk about a little bit of my background, why I joined AXIT, and why you should join AXIT too. So again, my name is MITCH LOZADA. I'm a first generation Filipino American, maybe a 1.5 second generation, depending on your school of thought. I was actually born in Canada and my family moved to California when I was 3 years old. So yeah, growing up in the States is all I know. And more specifically, I'm from the San Fernando Valley, Granada Hills, 818, what? And so yeah, I went to college at Cal State Northridge, CSUN. And after I graduated, I joined the US Air Force where I'm currently serving. On the side, I am a YouTuber, commentator. I talk about current events, reviews, pop culture, and social political commentary. So be sure to check me out, MITCH LOZADA, MITCH LOZADA. And if you like my videos, if you like my content, be sure, please consider subscribing. And back to talk about AXIT. But first, I do want to give a little bit more context of my background just because it leads to the thought process of why I joined AXIT. So again, a little bit more about my background. Like I said, I'm Filipino. I grew up in a Filipino household. I grew up in a very Catholic, very Republican household. So already my foundation was very conservative, right? But even with that, a lot of people could rebel and everything. But my disposition, my personal and temperament and everything is conscientious. So if you follow Jordan Peterson, without getting too ahead of myself, he mentions that conscientious people tend to lean conservative because we value traditions, order, structure, organization, and analysis. So again, conscientious people tend to lean conservative. So not only was my foundation conservative, my personality is conservative, so there's that. But you know, like I said, I went to CSUN and I was exposed to a lot of liberal ideas, and you know, I actually did a video about this, about like conservative values and Filipino values, Filipino liberal values, why should Filipinos leave the Democratic Party essentially. And in that video, you know, I did mention that I am thankful of the lessons and knowledge that I did gain from CSUN because I am a product of Filipino progressives. You know, when it comes to Asian American studies, when it comes to Filipino Club, what up FASA, and so I am a position of that. But going through college when I did, I wouldn't say it was as woke or as crazy that I would imagine it is now. But yeah, definitely was exposed to these ideas as far as the model minority myth and deconstructing the colonial mentality and arguing why affirmative action is a positive. Nowadays, I would argue against it, but you know, again, I was in this bubble as far as learning about these progressive ideas, right? But still having a conservative lean and everything, right? Also, mind you, I was, whether it's college or post-college, I was never political, right? And also when it comes to me being a Catholic, I would say that I was a very cultural Catholic, just going through the motions of being a practicing Catholic, going to church every week, following holy days of obligation, and you know, practicing things during Lent and all this stuff and prayers and everything, but I was not intellectually invested, right? All of that changed in 2018, right? And so, like I said, I was never like politically invested in all this stuff, and I can have discussions, but just on the surface level. And it was around 2018 that I started to notice a lot of things that like on Facebook that was coming up, that like there was a lot of rage bait, a lot of clickbait articles, a lot of things that was engaging like emotions, whether it's like racism or mental health or whatever, you know, it was a lot of this like clickbait articles. And at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of things echoing each other when it comes to like BuzzFeed News, Now This Politics, AJ Plus, Vox, HuffPost, you know, they were like echoing each other, and I'm just like questioning things, like, is everything as crazy as it is? And you know, and it was around this time I'm starting to see that things was what I would call now and recognize now as the SJW narrative and woke ideology inserting itself in pop culture, in movies, especially Star Wars. And it wasn't just a trend, like these things was growing exponentially, like affecting like this, like everything I'm watching on TV. And I'm just thinking this is really all crazy. And it didn't sit well with me that I couldn't have these discussions beyond surface level, right? When people were talking about abortions, like in deep down, like sure, I had like feelings about like why it was like not good, but I couldn't defend it on a Catholic level as well as a secular level, right? And it made me look internally and go dive into YouTube, right? And I'm so glad, because I'm so thankful, like, you know, like the Holy Spirit manifested in me, not just like on a religious level, but politically wise too. Like I went deep into faith and I went deep into politics, and just as much as everyone similarly went in a red pill story, like it started with like Ben Shapiro's videos, right? Like I'm watching these Ben Shapiro destroys liberals videos, right? And so you start with that, and then you lead into like Jordan Peterson talking about cultural Marxism on Joe Rogan or something. And so you just lead into this progression of these videos, and so it opens your mind. And I think that's the greatest point into this. Like whether it's the left or right, I think it's important that we have critical thinking, because even when I was watching like PragerU videos, I can see like what level of propaganda that it can be, you know? Like while sure there's areas where I agree, but I think it's important when it comes to anyone's red pill journey, that you get the tools that you learn critically and critically think. And that's, again, thank you to Professor Uba going at CISA, you know, like to let me know and deconstruct ideas and critically think, right? And so fast forward, now we're going into 2020. It is ramping up for the elections, and I'm ready, like, yo, I wouldn't say that I'm full on MAGA, but you know, by this time I was getting there, you know. And I'm already talking about a lot of these things on my channel. And anyway, so if you're Filipino American out there, I'm like the only one that's talking against Filipinx. Just real quick, if you want to identify as Filipinx, that is cool. That is, I will use it on an individual level. But once you say that Filipinx represents all Filipinos, no, that's not it. So like, be sure to check out my video. So I'm ready, like, it's 2020. I'm ready talking about all of this on my channel. It already 2020, it's already the pandemic and everything. And so going into summer and now ramping up into these MAGA rallies and everything, and I'm ready going to these rallies, go in Las Vegas as well in Beverly Hills. So I'm ready seeing things and like being a part of all of this. Also around this time, I'm seeing things I'm already talking about on my channel. There, like, you know, I already follow Kenneth Owens, and there's already Blexit and Lexit, you know, like I mentioned in other videos, there is no AXIT, there's no Asian exit, and lo and behold, we have the Korean conservative that is doing it. And so I was following him when he did his first initial video, because I tend to look at and search hashtag AXIT to see if anyone's talking about it. The closest thing before that was Walkawation, that was on the Daily Caller. Lisa Smiley mentioned it, and so I'm trying to use these hashtags and, you know, Walkawation and AXIT to see if there's anything that's popping up, right? And so again, around this time, I think July is when the Korean conservative started to push in his stuff. I've been monitoring his stuff, and then we got to meet each other during October during one of the Beverly Hills rally. Mind you, like the Beverly Hills rally was like not only massive and growing, it was happening each Saturday, and it was really amazing to see the level of patriotism that was going on there. Like all walks of life, it was like a 4th of July every weekend. The hype and like positivity was so great, you know, leading into the elections, right? And so point being is that, you know, I was already getting involved with the AXIT movement, right? I'm already talking with the Korean conservative, hanging out with them and everything. So also I'm like trying to do it on my channel, even talking about like Filipino exit, right? Not to take away from Asian exit, but, you know, to amplify it, to like grow the level of movement and awareness and red pill our fellow Asian Americans. And it's just this trying to grow this movement, right? And this positivity that you don't have to be a default Democrat, right? Leaning into it, you should join the AXIT movement because Asian values in its root are conservative values. And is there a discussion about liberal values that is actually positive? Sure. But when we talk about our roots, when we talk about what makes Asian Americans and our values, it does lean conservative. You know, when we talk about Asian values, there is this idea of honor. And even though like honor is not unique just to Asian cultures, it is something that we talk about, you know? We bow, we have, for Filipinos, we have mano po, right? And so there's this idea of respecting your elders and respecting family, right? And in doing so, that there's honor in that, right? And it represents not only a financial status, but a family status and economic status. And so it's no surprise that Asian Americans go for sciences, medical fields, jobs that seem very professional and prestigious because we want to honor our family, you know? And so that also goes for engineering, lawyers, military, because we recognize those are prestigious jobs, especially Filipinos doing the military, right? And so it is this idea of doing right for your family, right? And you could say that's a bad thing because we do have this idea about saving face, and I think it can go either side, that, you know, Asian Americans tend to be very quiet, except for Filipinos. We're very expressive. We do karaoke, we sing, we dance, and all that stuff. But anyway, but there's an idea in which we are reserved, and people think that we are quiet because we don't want to rock the boat. And I guess that's also a level in which there's an Asian aspect to it. And this is where the liberal values actually is a positive, because liberal values tend to lean towards activism, right? So like, this is actually something that we can learn as conservatives, is to be active and be more vocal, right? And so when it comes to like this honor and honoring your family, it is so intrinsic to the American way of life, because, you know, the early Americans and colonials they crossed Europe, they crossed the ocean from Europe for a better life, right? And so that makes perfect sense for Asians, right? Like, whether it's yourself, your mom, your dad, your grandparents, they crossed the Pacific Ocean for a better life, you know, without no handouts, without being entitled. They work hard for a better life. And I think this family honor needs to be like ingrained in us. And I want to develop this idea. It's Filipino, but it's utang na loob, right? A debt of gratitude, right? We have to give back to our family, and to ourselves, right? So it makes perfect sense as Asian Americans that we know that we don't have to depend on our government to develop our lives, to develop our families. It is within us. It's fully American and it's fully Asian, that we don't have to depend on anyone else except ourselves, right? And our communities, right? We don't have to depend on our government. And that's what the Democratic wants us to do, is depend on the government. This is why the Asian exit movement is important, exiting from the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party wants you to depend on the government. They are obsessed with racism. They are obsessed with victimhood. They are obsessed with the government owing you something when we don't. We come into this world knowing that we are not owed anything. We are not entitled to anything. You make your own life. That is what is important. And to think about that, to build something, to create something that you did on your own without someone else. Sure, everyone needs help here and there, but to be handed it to you, that is not Asian, you know? So wrapping it up again, when it comes to the Asian exit movement, I think it's important to recognize that this Democratic Party isn't the Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy. You know, they are full left, full progressive, if not socialist already. And so gone were the days of asking yourselves not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And that is no longer the Democrats that it is today, right? And, you know, when it comes to the Asian exit movement, yes, there is conservatives, but there's also libertarians, and, you know, anyone who is right of center, right? And so it's just, I think it's important to recognize that if you have friends who are Democrats, I think they need to start taking a real good look in the mirror of what the Democratic Party is selling you, and if they are the Democratic Party that was back in the JF Kennedy type of thing. And so definitely something that everyone needs to check out. So yes. Well, again, thank you for watching. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on my channel at MITCH LOZADA, and I also do other videos with my friend Jen at It's Mandatory Fun. And if you want to follow me on my Instagram, it's Hey Mitch Mitch. And then thank you again for watching. Good luck to AXIT movement, and see you in the next video. Peace, peace, peace. Be with you.